was a typical, uneventful Friday afternoon in calculus class. The week was almost over, and spring break was just around the corner. Everyone was restless, more focused on the upcoming vacation than the lesson at hand. Our teacher, known for his laid-back attitude, decided to lighten the mood by playing a game on Sporkle.com, a brand logo quiz. Laughter filled the room as we guessed answers, the tension of the week slowly fading away. But just as my friend triumphantly shouted, "Adidas," the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The dean's voice crackled over the loudspeaker, his tone uncharacteristically frantic. "This is not a drill. Go into lockdown immediately." The casual vibe of the room shattered instantly. Our usually calm teacher leapt into action, his face pale with fear. He turned off the lights and hurriedly ushered us to the back corner of the room. The buzzing of the lights ceased, leaving us in an eerie silence. The power cut off. The minutes that followed felt like hours. We all sat in the darkness, hearts pounding, listening for any sign of what was happening. Then, from somewhere in the hallway, we heard it. A man's voice, screaming at the top of his lungs. His words were unintelligible at first, but the terror in his voice was unmistakable. Two girls began to cry, their fear infectious. The screams grew louder, and suddenly the man began pounding on the lockers, his voice echoing down the corridor. "I'll kill all of you." Panic surged through the room. Our teacher, who had always been the epitome of calm, looked terrified as he desperately tried to keep us quiet. The banging grew closer, each thud making my heart jump. Then he reached our classroom door. The handle rattled violently as the man screamed, "Open up." One of the girls couldn't hold it in any longer and let out a terrified scream, which only seemed to fuel the man's rage. For what felt like an eternity, he pounded on the door, trying to force his way in. But then, just as suddenly as it began, the banging stopped. The man's screams faded as he moved further down the hallway. We all sat there, too scared to move or even breathe. 10 minutes later, though it felt much longer, the dean's voice returned. He explained that a mentally unstable man had entered the school, attacked the front desk clerk, and disappeared into the building. The staff couldn't locate him, so the lockdown would remain in effect. Eventually, the lockdown was lifted, and we were told to resume our day, though the fear lingered long after. Later, we heard rumors that the man had been found by a janitor, hiding in a storage closet with a .44 Magnum in his pocket. But when the police arrived, he was gone. To this day, no one knows if he was ever caught. But every time I hear a sudden loud noise, I remember the terror of that day and wonder where that man is now. Our school had 2 lunch periods, 6th graders and some 7th graders ate during the first lunch, while the remaining 7th graders and all 8th graders had the second. It was a gloomy October day, the sky overcast and the air heavy with the promise of rain. I was with my friends, waiting in line to buy lunch, when we heard 4 loud booms. At first, I thought it was thunder, but the panicked screams of my classmates told me otherwise. Campus security burst into the cafeteria, their faces set with grim determination. "Everyone into the multi-purpose room, now," they shouted. The urgency in their voices sent a wave of fear through the crowd. Those of us in line had to abandon our lunch trays and hurry inside. The multi-purpose room, usually a place of casual gatherings, transformed into a refuge. The back wall, normally a wall of windows, was quickly covered with heavy curtains. Adults stood at every exit, their eyes scanning the room nervously. My friend Eric, ever the curious one, asked one of the adults what was going on. When he returned, his face was pale. "There's a crazy guy in one of the houses across from the school," he whispered. "He's threatened to kill himself and anyone who tries to evict him. He was outside watching the kids, and the cops think he's dangerous." The room fell into a tense silence as his words sank in. The man wasn't just any neighbor, he was a registered sex offender. My stomach churned at the thought of him watching us. We were stuck in that room for what felt like an eternity, 2 whole periods passing before we were finally escorted back to our classrooms, one by one. Later, I learned from my friend Brandy, who lived next door to the man, that he was more than just dangerous. He was deeply disturbed. Previous Halloween, she had seen him standing at his window, cutting his arm and writing on the glass with his own blood. "Don't come here, or I'll kill you," he had scrawled. At the time, everyone thought it was just a gruesome Halloween prank. But now, we knew better. The man was eventually taken away by the police, but the fear he instilled in us lingered long after. Every time I passed his house, I couldn't help but feel a chill, knowing how close we had come to being his next victims. I was 22, fresh out of college, and back at my old high school as a computer intern. It was a strange feeling being back, but I was grateful for the job. My office was in the basement, cluttered space with a small, tidy area carved out for me and my two coworkers, Dave and Gary. The basement was a place of solace, cool, quiet escape from the hustle and bustle, school above. One afternoon, while enjoying my lunch break, I received a call from the front office. We're on lockdown. There's a possible intruder in the building. Stay where you are and turn off the lights. Woman on the phone instructed. My heart skipped a beat. The basement, despite being a fortress of solitude, suddenly felt vulnerable. The office I was in didn't have a door, just an open entryway, and the basement door itself had no lock. I did as I was told, turning off the lights and sinking into the darkness. I texted Dave and Gary, hoping for some reassurance, but received no reply. The silence was suffocating as I waited for any news, the minutes dragging by. Suddenly, the basement door creaked open, sound amplified by the silence. My heart pounded in my chest as I heard footsteps descending the stairs. I held my breath, praying it was just one of my coworkers. But when the footsteps reached my office, they stopped. I could feel someone's presence just beyond the darkness. Then, my phone dinged with a text message. The sound was deafening in the silence. I froze, terror coursing through me as the footsteps drew closer. I was trapped. There was no escape. Desperate, crawled under my desk, hoping the darkness would hide me. Footsteps stopped just inches away. I could feel the presence looming over me. In a last-ditch effort, I bolted from my hiding spot, pleading with whoever it was not to hurt me. But instead of an attacker, I found myself face to face with a man in a red plaid shirt and cap. "It's okay," he said calmly. "I'm just hiding down here too." Something about him didn't sit right with me. I asked who he was, but he ignored my question, instead asking if there was another way out of the basement. Suspicion gnawed at me, but I pointed towards the exit. He nodded and started to walk away. Then I remembered the text. I glanced at my phone and my blood ran cold. The message was from Dave. "Dude, some guy shot Mr. Buckley. He's wearing a red shirt and a hat. Stay down." I looked up at the man, dread filling my gut. He had caught on to my change in demeanor. Before I could react, I turned and sprinted for the stairs. A gunshot rang out, echoing through the basement, but I didn't stop. I burst through the door at the top of the stairs, nearly colliding with the police who had surrounded the exits. The man in the basement was captured moments later. Miraculously, Mr. Buckley survived the shooting, but the reason for the attack remained a mystery. To this day, I can still hear the gunshot echoing in my mind, a haunting reminder of how close I came to being another victim. Lockdowns are meant to be safe havens, a shield against the chaos that lurks outside. But as these stories reveal, sometimes the real terror is not what's trying to get in, but what's already inside. The walls that we trust to protect us can quickly become a prison, where fear festers and shadows whisper. In those moments of silence, when every creak and footstep could be your last, you realize that the true horror isn't the unknown. It's the dreadful certainty. For some, there's no escape. As the final bell rings and the doors swing open, we step back into the daylight, but the darkness never truly leaves. It lingers, a chilling reminder that safety is an illusion, and that sometimes the real monsters aren't out there. They're much closer than you think.